Now, what greater claim can anyone make than to claim that he is God? And when he claimed it, they said he is blaspheming. For here is a man, and the man dares to claim he is God. The 10th of John. And he said, is it not written in your law, I say ye are gods, sons of the Most High? If he called them gods to whom the word of God came, do you say of the one that he anointed and sent into the world that he is blaspheming? Do you know of any greater claim in the world than for a man to identify himself with God and walk as though he were? And not be ashamed to admit it? He doesn't go bragging about it, but he knows in his heart he is one with God. For if his imagination is God and he imagines, well then that's God. And if he imagines a state and it comes to pass, then he knows the creative power that is God. He doesn't have to brag about it and boast about it, but he doesn't have to hide it either. He doesn't have to bury it and be ashamed of it. He sleeps in a noble state because he's one with God. But let everyone take that attitude and the world will change. Not be beaten, but you can take the whole vast world, if they feel themselves slaves, give them the world, they'll want it again tomorrow. Unless a man has self-respect, you can give him all the money in the world, and it means nothing. That goes for the individual, it goes for a family, it goes for a race of people, it goes for a nation. Just as our late President Hoover said, the rise and fall of ideas will determine the rise and fall of men, the rise and fall of nations, the rise and fall of communities. So tell me the idea the community entertains about itself. I'll tell you that community. But now change that idea of itself and you'll change that community. Let a family feel important in itself. It doesn't have to have a background. Who has a background? So you go back far enough, and almost everyone who now claims importance would be ashamed of that background. So don't go back, start just where you are. And don't pay anyone to look up your family tree because you're going to pay them to forget it. Just all of a sudden start right now and assume the dignity that is God. That's what your real background is, God. And so assume it. And then walk in that assumption, and if you have children, I hope you do, well then, instill that into the child. Instill it into all within the environment, and have them feel important. I have no background judged by human standards. Are they intellectual, financial, or these things? We made it. But Mother instilled in us, when we did something of which she was ashamed, she would say to us, have you forgotten that you are a Goddard? We didn't know. That must have been very important. Because Mother said, have you forgotten that you are a Goddard? Well, I never heard that we ever had any background. But all of a sudden you began to feel that you must be important. So Mother instilled it into our mind's eye. She made the name important. So today it is important where we are. In the business sense, in every sense, it's important. But Mother did that, and she married a man who had no background and took his name. But she made it important. All right? Who has any background? As far as I'm concerned, I refuse to accept the aristocracy of any being in this world other than the aristocracy of the Spirit. What other aristocracy? Give me the aristocracy of the Spirit, but don't come to me with any physical descent. I'm not an animal. I'm not a horse where you develop it by one horse after the other. I'm God. We're all God. You can't go back beyond God. So if that's the start of all of us, well then that is our root. And so claim it now. At any point in time, claim it. And you'll find it.
So there you go. Neville says correctly that your background doesn't matter. This goes, and he says, not just for individuals, but for countries, nations, for entire races of people. If you feel that you are important, you are. Or even said about his mother, have you forgotten you're a Goddard? You instill that into your children. You instill the importance. Your background is God. All of our background is God. You don't go by this earthly background having to do with position or aristocracy or anything like that. Your earthly physical background doesn't matter. This is a garment that you're wearing through this life. All of that stuff is imaginary. So assume it. Assume that you are important, because you are. Change that self-image, and hopefully you change your life. That's what Neville's saying. Not hopefully, I mean you will, but that's just how I speak. Hopefully meaning that you actually do this. So there's more pearls of wisdom from Neville Goddard. I hope you enjoyed it. Whenever I find stuff like this, I try to take it out of lectures and present it on its own, because so many people don't like to listen to the entire lectures. This was something that struck me from the first time I had heard this lecture, so I wanted to share it in an isolated fashion. I hope you enjoyed it.